Hello everyone. In this channel, we share stories from around the world. Stories about science, history, and the people who live through them. Today's story is about a small strip of land that has carried more sorrow and hope than almost any other place on earth. A land called Gaza. It lies along the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea, between Israel and Egypt, only about 40 kilometers long, and barely 10 kilometers wide. Yet, more than 2 million people live here. In one of the most crowded places on the planet. It's a place of contradictions. Ancient and modern, sacred and scarred, full of life, yet often surrounded by war. But behind the headlines, beyond the politics and the maps, there is a much deeper story. A story about identity, loss, and the human need for home. To understand Gaza, we have to go back in time. More than a century. In the late 1800s, Jewish communities in Europe were suffering. They faced discrimination, violence, and exile. In response, a movement began. Zionism. The idea that Jewish people should return to their ancestral homeland, the land of their forefathers, Palestine. But Palestine was not empty. It was already home to hundreds of thousands of Arab families, farmers, traders, and craftsmen who had lived there for generations. Two peoples, bound by different histories and faiths, looked to the same land and said, "This is where I belong." After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed, and Britain took control of Palestine. In 1917, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration, a promise to help establish a national home for the Jewish people. To many Jews, it was hope. To many Arabs, it was betrayal. The two communities, once living side by side, began to drift apart. As Jewish migration increased, Arab resistance grew stronger. Tensions turned into riots, and riots into armed conflict. Still, both peoples dreamed of peace. But peace that meant very different things. Then came the darkest chapter of modern history. World War II. The Holocaust. 6 million Jewish lives were lost, entire families disappeared. When the war ended, the world vowed never to let such tragedy happen again. And the global sympathy for Jewish survivors paved the way for something new. The creation of a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations proposed to divide Palestine into two independent states. One Jewish, one Arab. The Jewish leadership accepted, the Arab nations rejected, and in 1948, Israel declared its independence. War broke out immediately. Arab countries invaded. Israel fought back. When the fighting stopped, Israel had survived, but more than 700,000 Palestinians had lost their homes. Families fled across borders, many of them to a small coastal corner, the Gaza Strip. They built shelters with their bare hands. They believed they would return home soon. But decades passed, and home never came back. In the following years, Gaza came under Egyptian control. Then, in 1967, after the Six-Day War, Israel occupied Gaza and the West Bank. Life under occupation was hard. Restrictions, checkpoints, and tension became part of daily life. And yet, even in the middle of struggle, children went to school, markets opened, and fishermen set out to sea. Because life, even fragile, must go on. In 1987, something changed. It started with a car accident involving Israeli soldiers. The tragedy sparked anger, and soon, thousands of Palestinians took to the streets. They threw stones. They marched. They demanded freedom. This uprising became known as the First Intifada. It wasn't led by governments, but by ordinary people, students, parents, workers, and for the first time, the world began to truly see Gaza, not as a map, but as a place full of human stories. In 1993, a moment of hope arrived. Leaders from Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization signed the Oslo Accords. It gave limited self-rule to Palestinians in Gaza and parts of the West Bank. For a short time, people believed peace was possible. There were celebrations. Children waved flags. And even the air felt lighter. But peace is fragile, and politics can easily destroy it. By the early 2000s, violence returned. Israel began building a barrier for security. Militant groups launched rockets, and Gaza became trapped between two forces: fear and survival. In 2007, the militant group Hamas seized control of Gaza. Israel, citing security concerns, imposed a blockade, sealing Gaza from land, sea, and air. Since then, life has been shaped by scarcity. Electricity runs for only a few hours a day. Clean water is hard to find. Unemployment is among the highest in the world. Yet, despite all this, people still live, love, and dream. At sunset, families gather on rooftops. Children play football in dusty alleys. Fishermen mend their nets by lantern light. And in the quiet, you can almost hear the sound of hope. A whisper that says, one day, things will be different. Gaza is often described as a place of endless conflict. But it is also a place of endurance. A reminder of the human ability to survive, even in impossible conditions. For more than 100 years, this small strip of land has seen empires fall, nations rise, and generations grow up dreaming of peace. It's easy to see Gaza as a story of war, but it's also a story of humanity. A story of families, of children born under the same sky who still believe that someday, home will mean peace. Thank you for listening. If this story touched you, please subscribe and share it with someone, because understanding history is the first step toward ending the cycle of it.